Pack-in titles are very important for a console's early launch. Nothing bums you out more than spending all that money on a console and not having anything to play it with. So pack-in titles are a way to get the ball rolling while saving some money. The most famous one I can think of has to be Wii Sports, where you could play a variety of sports games with your Nintendo Wii, as long as you didn't throw your Wiimote at the screen.
And there goes the tennis racket.
According to his book, Reggie Fils-Aimé, the Nintendo of America CEO at the time, had to fight with Nintendo of Japan to get Wii Sports packed in with the console. But in the end, it was more than worth it, helping the Wii fly off the store shelves and becoming one of the best-selling consoles of all time. And while the Wii U had the pack-in title of Nintendo Land, with the Nintendo Switch, there wasn't one. You could buy Breath of the Wild for $60, or the overpriced tech demo 1-2 Switch for $50.
But now with the Nintendo Switch 2 out, surely they wouldn't be doing something like this again.
Oh hey, Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour exists. Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour felt like the perfect pack-in title when it was unveiled during the Nintendo Direct. It was a low-budget game about the inner workings of the Switch 2, and seemed like something everyone would want to try out. Wait, it's $10? It's not that it's expensive. Trust me, we've covered an $80 game before. But to a lot of folks, a game that's literally about every part of the console seems like a great way to introduce newcomers to the console. Even with the Mario Kart bundle, it still would have been nice to have another game to play. But no, you gotta cough up more money. Who would want to spend $10 for this
Take all my money, Nintendo! Is Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour worth the price? Or is it just
one big pile of shit?
Let's find out.
You start the game with a flashy animation, your choice of avatar, and one of the many people in line to see the Nintendo Switch 2. I would make a joke about this if I wasn't also in line to see the Nintendo Switch 2 a few weeks ago. This guy looks like me. Enough. And then the game begins, where you not only see the Nintendo Switch 2 console, the entire game takes place on the Switch 2. I'll admit, it's cool to see the Switch 2 being broken down into actual levels, and seeing how each metal surface or mechanical part or chip is represented in the gaming world. And while it's not a beautiful vista from Mario Kart World, there is a nice atmosphere here. It gives a museum vibe, going from exhibit to exhibit, learning specific subjects. It absolutely nails the feeling, almost too well. I do like the level and sound design. Each texture has a different sound effect when you walk on them, giving the console a living, breathing, and interactive environment. You can also talk to a majority of the NPCs that are just standing around. Do they have anything interesting to say? While some will give you hints, a lot of them just make comments about how excited they are for this museum. Ooh, this museum is going to change their lives! Oh boy! This one was abandoned by their family. For now, though, let's explore the console, one stamp at a time.
No, you heard that right. I do mean stamp, as that is the main collectible you're going for.
Every time you find a part of the console, a stamp podium pops out like a jack-in-a-box, and you gotta stamp it up in your list. You gotta do this with every part, from the Joy-Cons to the screen to the buttons. Heck, even things like the fan, dock, and alternate controller options get stamps. But more on that later. Most of them are easy to find, as it's usually a button, knob, stick, or thingamajig that just screams, "Interact with me!" It's a pretty rewarding feeling as you fill out your collection. There's quite a lot in each area. Stamp, stamp, stampity stamp.
Alright, I think I found most of the stamps here. How about we move on to the next area? Well, about that, you can't.
In order to move on to the next exhibit, you have to get all the stamps for each area. Like, why? I understand you want us to see everything this game has to offer, but why every single stamp? Why not a certain number to unlock the next section, and maybe a special reward if you get them all? That'd be reasonable. I can understand having to get a certain amount, sure, but making all of them required changes this from a fun romp to a chore. Some of these stamps are hard to find, too. A lot of times I found myself running from the console like a madman, trying to figure out where they were, as they only pop up when you get close to them. But random? How hard could it be to find a stamp? You just said they were super interactable. Alright, let's take the screen for example. The stamps are going to be near the components of the Switch 2, so you'd think the stamp for the screen would be pretty easy to find, seeing as the screen takes up a majority of the console. But nope! You gotta go to a specific spot of the screen, a micro dot, and the screen is not small. It took me a lot longer than I thought it would to find that stamp, although I was having fun sliding around. Whee! If I'm honest, it can get extremely repetitive just going around finding stamps, and it left me a bit bored at times, like I was just going through the motions. Stamps, 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 and more stamps. Can something break the monotony here?
Well, as it turns out, there is. Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour has a variety of minigames you can play throughout your stamp collecting. And in my opinion, it is the best thing about the game.
They're here, of course, to demonstrate what the console can do, with a lot of them focusing on mouse mode. But random mouse mode, what's that? In case you don't know any of the new features of the console, the Nintendo Switch 2's Joy-Cons come with a computer mouse's capabilities, so now you can use it like an average computer mouse. And the games here test that out. Some of these games can get pretty wacky, with things like controlling a UFO while navigating through spiky balls, or having to track where on the screen your HD Rumble 2 vibrates the most. And it certainly does rumble. The mini-games are creative and charming, and a great way of showing console features. And I gotta say, mouse mode is incredibly impressive, as it actually does feel better than using the mouse on my PC. It's also odd but satisfying. I don't need a mouse pad to achieve this. Heck, I finished this minigame using my thigh for a surface. Wait.
Who knew my bald head was smooth enough for this?
Some of the games are also just plain fun, and I spent a lot more time on them than I'd like to admit. That UFO game and another mouse mode game where you guide a bolt of electricity are so quick that you just want to give it another go every time you fail. It's nice that in the middle of all the stamp shenanigans, you have these mini games to keep things interesting.
However, there's one little problem with the minigames. You may not be able to play all of them.
There are two reasons why you wouldn't be able to play these mini games and demos. The first reason is you don't have enough medals, and that makes sense. Medals are rewarded for every challenge you win, and from a progression standpoint, it's pretty standard that you'd unlock more of the game as you beat it. The other requirements, though, are a bit weird. The games essentially have a dual purpose, being entertaining while also highlighting certain features of the console, or products related to it. This is a fun little addition, especially considering the entire premise of this game is exploring what the Switch 2 has to offer. However, this does require you to do some oddly specific things. Some mini games require you to be in handheld or docked mode. Some require the Joy-Con mice, or Pro Controller, or even the camera to function. Don't get me started on that face mini game. That face freaks me out, man. Hell, some demos they wouldn't even let me do unless I had a 4K TV. I thought this game was only $10, but now I gotta get a new television set?
You did this to me, Welcome Tour.
Obviously, you don't need to buy hundreds of dollars worth of electronics. These are optional, but I felt I missed out on so many of these games because of it. And forget wanting to 100% this game, as doing so would technically require a lot of expensive accessories. Given that we're already spending close to $500 on the console, it can be very disheartening when I just want to play the game. But no! I wound up playing what I could, and then going back to stamp, stamp, stampity stamp, and more stamps. I'm going to be seeing stamps in my dreams.
Hey, I was wondering where this thing went.
Wait, how did I get here? Put me down! Put
Lost
me down!
items.
Throughout each section of the console, you will find lost items. After collecting them, you can bring them back to the information desk, where nothing happens. But it is another collectible, I guess.
And this is where I made a paragraph or two about how I thought you couldn't backtrack certain levels in the game. I really, for the longest time, didn't know you could just fast travel to certain places. I really thought you couldn't, and I was gonna dock the game points because of this. When in reality, all you had to do was go to the menu, click it, and then it would teleport you there instantly. Oops! So you know what? I'll give the game a pass. I'm glad they added some sort of fast travel that, in reality, is instantaneous. But there's still a lot of things in this game that annoy me.
I'm trying Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. I really want to find something to like here, but there always seems to be some sort of headache to it. Maybe I can just collect all the items and then bring them to the welcome desk at the end, right? No! You can only carry one item at a time. The game is really controlling with how it wants you to have fun. You gotta get all the stamps before you continue. You gotta get one lost item at a time. You gotta buy a $500 TV to play the demo for Super Mario Brothers.
Oh my god. Well, what if I told you the game was not only fun, but it was also educational? And by educational, I mean educational with things about the Switch 2. Yes, you can learn a thing or two about the Switch 2 here. And you learn these things with the quizzes. Wait, I gotta go back to school now?
Amidst the stamps and minigames are quizzes, where you can learn about certain things about the console, and it goes into detail. You can read about how the console works, what parts are used, and what they do, and other interesting...
I'm here!
Okay, for real, the positive thing about this is how much detail it can get into. And I do find it genuinely interesting seeing how the sausage gets made. And if you are a game dev or enjoy tech specs, this is probably going to be right up your alley. In fact, it's probably good for people like me to know this. After all, I am a content creator for the Switch 2. Like, comment, and subscribe. I could learn some fun hidden tidbits that help me in a pinch. However, for the average Nintendo fan, this can be boring. It can be dry at times, and I found myself getting tired after taking some of these quizzes. I felt like I was back at school playing this game. And I don't know about you, but this isn't exactly the experience I wanted so early into a new console. Again, if you're into making games, this is really cool, and I'm sure you will love it. But for me, I just can't get into it. Stamp! 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 While I'm having this mental breakdown, let's find something good to talk about. Music! I quite like the music in this game. It captures the whole museum vibe perfectly, while also reminding me of the menu music from the Wii and Wii U. It overall has a calming experience. The minigame music is quirky, again reminding me of music from other tech demos like Nintendo Land. It's for sure my second favorite thing about this game. Alright, that was nice. Back to me losing my mind. I'll never look at postage again. Okay, after making my way through each exhibit and collecting all the stamps, which got really old by the way, I made my way to the final section, the inside of the Nintendo Switch 2, where I will admit, it looks pretty cool. Most people aren't able to see what a Switch 2 looks like on the inside, so it's nice that it's shown here.
Saves me from having to break the console myself. I'm just kidding, Nintendo. Please don't break my Switch.
This level is ruined, however, because guess what? Stamps! And it's not straightforward either. The inside of this console is a maze of wires you can't walk across, forcing you to follow a certain pathway to progress. To top it all off with the fact that, let me remind you, the stamps don't show up until you get close to them. It's incredibly frustrating moving around here, and I eventually had to look up a guide to find them. Not to mention, play the minigames and do the quizzes. Eventually, you do find all 18 stamps in this room, and you make your way to the true final room, where you find more stamps for the love of God! Finally, I have them all. And here we meet the curator of the museum. What is your final challenge for Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour? A mouse mode minigame? Mailing all the stamps and creating the ultimate postcard?
Nope! It's a test.
That's right. The reward for this Stamp Fest is Nintendo asking me if I paid enough attention. You gotta do one final quiz that is a big review of everything you learned from your previous quizzes. Thankfully, it's only 13 questions. They aren't too bad, but come on! I just had to look up a guide on how to find the stamps to even get here. I was really hoping for a pleasant send-off at least. And it ends with the hardest question that's ever been on any quiz.
Gee, I don't know.
And with that, you finish the game, and that's it. No credits, no special end screen, not even a thank you so much for playing my game from Mario. Just ends. Go buy a 4K TV.
For me personally, I just can't say that Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour is worth it.
It made itself out to be this awesome introduction to the Switch 2. And while it is a great educational tool for game development, its pacing is off, progression is monotonous, and it sacrifices its fun for a very controlled experience. Stamps! In fact, it feels less like a game and more like an interactive service, which, more power to you if that's what Nintendo wanted to do. To be fair, it does have some things that make it worth the $10, sure. I enjoyed the mini-games, for example, but I'd be lying if I thought this game should be a standalone title. It should have been a freebie that you get with the console, or maybe for Switch Online users. But knowing if it was part of either of those, Nintendo would probably increase the price of the console or Switch Online. So this was probably the best outcome. I'm sure a lot of people would have wanted to try it. It's a shame though, because while there's a lot of great things about it, it wore out its welcome and became a chore to finish. Not even the charming demos could save this tiresome experience.
There are two titles that I compare this game to. One that's worse, and the other that's much, much better.
The first is 1-2-Switch, the first multiplayer launch title that should have been a freebie for the Switch 1. It was filled with motion control games, HD Rumble gimmicks, and virtual cow milk. But instead, the game was a one-and-done experience that cost $50. Yeah, Welcome Tour is better than this. Not only is the price much cheaper, but overall, it was at least interesting to explore. A bit. And its educational stuff was... educational? You gotta give credit where it's due.
The other game, though, the game that blows Welcome Tour out of the water, that is a perfect pack-in title, isn't even made by Nintendo. It's made by their competitor, Sony. And that game is Astro's Playroom.
I remember booting up Astro's Playroom when I first got my PS5 and being absolutely floored. It was a commercial for the PS5 that was made to show off what the DualSense controller could do, but with actual platforming levels, cool game mechanics, and incredible graphics. It felt like an actual game, like a platformer that Sony made back in the PS1 days, and it was still so shocking to believe that a game of this quality was just packed in with the console. It had great ideas, Easter eggs, and references to older titles that I thought were great. It was a wonderfully memorable experience and had me chomping at the bit when I found Astro was getting their own game later on. Which won Game of the Year, by the way. I covered it in a video. Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour isn't any of those things. It's a virtual museum with some fun tech demos. While it has so much going for it, there's a lot of bad to tip the scales, and makes this a slog to get through. I wanted to like this game, even with the $10 price tag. I thought the value would be there, but with the way this is, I don't think I can honestly say that. Trust me, play Mario Kart World or Cyberpunk 2077. They are better first games than this. Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour has certainly outworn its welcome.
Well, all's well that ends well. Wait a minute. I can't be holding two items.
Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you like what you saw, be sure to hit the like button, leave a comment, and check out my other videos too. Special thanks to all the people who helped me out with the video. I couldn't have done it without all of you. Also, an extra special thanks to my Patreon patrons, including Mantle Ferox, Blu-ray Joe 3, and Savacom. If you'd like to join the Patreon, the link is in the description below, along with my Twitch, Blue Sky, and Instagram. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a good night.